How can you live in a country of keys and locks and still have nowhere to sleep, while 1,000 dark windows stare back at you, empty? Walk with me through a major American city at night, past a man curled under a freeway ramp, past a mother counting coins by the glow of a gas station sign, past a shelter line that moves like a slow confession. Then look up at luxury towers, perfectly still, lights off, rooms untouched, as if nobody ever planned to live there at all. This is the global housing paradox, the feeling of scarcity inside a landscape of abundance. The question is not whether we can build homes, it is why the system keeps producing empty homes while people keep losing shelter. And to understand that, we have to follow the incentives, not the slogans. To understand what a housing crisis really is, we have to unlearn something we have been told for decades. We're told the problem is supply, not enough homes, not enough construction, not enough land. But that explanation collapses the moment you notice something unsettling. In many of the world's richest, most urbanized economies, housing units have continued to rise, even as affordability has collapsed. A modern housing crisis is not defined by the absence of buildings. It is defined by a mismatch between what homes are for and how the system now uses them. Housing used to be treated, first and foremost, as shelter, a place to live, to raise children, to age, to recover after work. Today, increasingly, housing is treated as a financial asset, a store of value, a hedge against inflation, a vehicle for global capital to park itself quietly and wait. This shift accelerated after the financial crisis of 2008, when central banks pushed interest rates towards zero and money began searching for somewhere safe to go. It intensified again after COVID-19, when stimulus, low borrowing costs, and uncertainty collided. In dense global cities, homes stopped being built for residents and started being priced for investors. This analysis applies most clearly to highly urbanized, financially integrated economies, places where housing markets are plugged into global capital flows. It does not fully apply to war zones, disaster regions, or places where homes are physically destroyed. There, scarcity is real, visible, and brutal. But in cities where cranes still rise and vacancy quietly grows, the crisis is not about whether shelter exists, it is about who the system is designed to shelter and who it is quietly willing to leave outside. After the financial crisis of 2008, housing quietly crossed a line. What had once been primarily a place to live became more and more a place to park capital. In the years that followed the collapse of global credit markets, central banks pushed interest rates towards zero. Some went even further. Money was made cheap on purpose to restart growth, stabilize banks, and prevent another depression. But cheap money has consequences. When savings earn almost nothing, capital does what it has always done. It looks for safety, it looks for yield, and it looks for assets that governments will not allow to fail. Housing fit that role perfectly.
Apartments in major cities began to resemble financial instruments, not because families suddenly needed more homes, but because global investors needed somewhere stable to put trillions of newly created dollars. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance companies, and high-net-worth individuals increasingly treated real estate as a defensive asset. Concrete and land felt safer than paper promises. This shift was not driven by ideology, it was driven by incentives. Low interest rates reduced borrowing costs. Rising prices rewarded early buyers. Expectations hardened into belief. Housing would always recover. Housing would always be protected. In that environment, buying a home was no longer about shelter, it was about exposure. Cross-border capital flows into real estate expanded sharply in the decade after 2008, according to trends observed by international financial institutions, though exact figures vary by methodology and require careful verification from sources such as the Bank for International Settlements and the International Monetary Fund. What matters more than the precise number is the direction. Money moved globally, but land did not. Capital piled into the same cities, the same neighborhoods, the same assets. And here is the crucial shift. When housing becomes an investment first, vacancy stops being a problem. A dark apartment can still be profitable. An empty building can still generate returns through appreciation alone. Use becomes optional. Price becomes everything. This is how housing detaches from housing needs. The market does not ask whether people can afford to live there. It asks whether capital feels safe staying there. And once that logic takes hold, shelter becomes secondary to storage. The crisis, at its core, is not a shortage of buildings. It is a shortage of homes that are allowed to function as homes. Empty homes are not always the result of speculation. Sometimes they are the shadow left behind by people who moved or never arrived at all. In Japan, the silence is rural. Drive through mountain towns an hour from Tokyo, and you will see houses slowly dissolving into the landscape. Roofs sag, mailboxes rust, gardens grow wild. These homes were not hoarded by investors. They were left behind by demography. A rapidly aging population, low birth rates, and decades of migration toward major cities hollowed out entire regions. Children left for work, parents stayed, then nobody stayed at all. The buildings remained, but the social ecosystem that once gave them value vanished. China tells a very different story, louder, faster, and far more deliberate. Over the last 2 decades, urbanization became an economic engine. Local governments relied on land development to drive growth. Entire districts were planned, financed, and built in advance of demand. Towers rose before families arrived. Streets were laid before shops opened. In some cases, residents eventually came. In others, they never did. The result was a landscape of partially occupied cities, not because nobody needed housing, but because housing was built ahead of jobs, services, and sustainable demand. These ghost cities were not always mistakes. Many were calculated risks taken during a period of rapid growth. But they reveal something important. Housing supply does not automatically follow human need. It follows incentives, fiscal pressure, growth targets, political timelines. And this is the crucial boundary. Not every empty home is an investment asset. Not every vacancy signals financialization. Some reflect demographic collapse. Others reflect planning errors. Others still reflect transitions that never fully completed. But when demographic decline and speculative logic overlap, vacancy multiplies. Homes sit empty not because people want them, but because the system no longer prioritizes matching people to places. It prioritizes balance sheets over belonging. Ghost cities remind us that buildings alone do not create housing. People do. And when people disappear, concrete quietly keeps the score. To understand why homes stay empty, we have to stop asking who needs housing and start asking who benefits from vacancy. Look first at local governments. In many urban economies, public finances are deeply tied to land values. Property taxes, development fees, zoning approvals, bond ratings, all quietly depend on prices staying high. When prices rise, balance sheets look healthy. When prices fall, budgets tighten, borrowing becomes harder, and political risk increases. In that environment, an empty home is not a failure. It is often a stabilizer. Vacancy can help restrict supply, protect valuations, and preserve the illusion of strength. Now look at large asset holders. For institutional investors, housing is rarely evaluated one family at a time. It is modeled as a portfolio. Returns are measured over decades, not months. From that perspective, leaving a unit empty can be rational. Renting introduces wear. Tenants create risk. Price appreciation, by contrast, is clean, silent, predictable. An unoccupied building can still generate wealth simply by existing in the right location. This logic is reinforced by scale. A household loses money when a home sits empty. A large fund does not. It can absorb carrying costs. It can wait. It can outlast political cycles. Time becomes an advantage. Vacancy becomes optional.
And then there are the rules themselves. Zoning laws that limit density, tax systems that reward appreciation over use, weak penalties for prolonged vacancy, All of these are not accidents. They are policy choices, shaped by lobbying, by legacy interests, by the quiet alignment between public budgets and private wealth. Here is the uncomfortable judgment. The system does not malfunction when homes sit empty. It performs exactly as designed. It prioritizes asset stability over social use, price signals over human need, balance sheets over bedrooms. This does not require conspiracy, it requires incentives. When every major actor benefits more from holding value than from housing people, emptiness becomes rational. And once vacancy is rational, it becomes invisible. The lights stay off, the doors stay locked, and the crisis deepens, not because shelter is impossible, but because using shelter has become less profitable than owning it. When housing stops functioning as shelter, the damage does not stay contained inside the market. It spills outward, into inequality, into family formation, into social trust. For younger generations, the consequences arrive early and compound quietly. Rent absorbs a growing share of income, saving becomes impossible, mobility shrinks. Decisions once taken for granted, moving out, starting a family, having children, are postponed or abandoned altogether. Across advanced economies, declining fertility rates have closely tracked rising housing insecurity, according to demographic trends documented by national statistical agencies and international organizations. The connection is not abstract. Stability precedes life planning. Without a place to land, the future feels theoretical. In the United States, the pattern is sharp and visible. Homeownership has increasingly concentrated among older, wealthier households, while younger workers face higher rents, longer commutes, and greater exposure to job shocks. Housing wealth becomes a divider, separating those who benefit from appreciation from those who pay it. Germany offers a partial contrast. Long-standing tenant protections, a larger rental sector, and weaker cultural pressure to own have muted some of the extremes. Housing is still expensive in major cities, but vacancy plays a different role. Empty units face stronger scrutiny. Speculative holding is less socially normalized. The result is not affordability for all, but slower polarization. Japan presents yet another outcome. Falling population and aging demographics have produced widespread vacancy, but without the same rent explosions seen elsewhere. Prices in many regions stagnate or decline. Housing loses its aura as a guaranteed investment. But this stability comes at a cost: shrinking communities, empty towns, and a labor force under strain. These comparisons matter, but they have limits. Institutions differ, culture matters, legal frameworks shape behavior. No single model transfers cleanly from one country to another. What unites these cases is the direction of pressure. When housing systems prioritize asset preservation over human use, inequality deepens, trust erodes, and societies grow brittle. The crisis is not only about where people sleep, it is about whether the next generation believes there is a place for them at all. There is no single lever that fixes a housing system like this, because the problem was never created by a single decision. It is the product of choices layered over decades. Some governments have begun to experiment. Vacancy taxes, designed to make empty homes costly rather than convenient. Expanded social and public housing, treated not as charity, but as critical infrastructure. Planning reforms that prioritize use over speculation. None of these are silver bullets. Each carries trade-offs. Each creates winners and losers. From here, three futures begin to emerge. In a reform-driven path, vacancy is penalized, supply is redirected toward living, not storage, and housing slowly reconnects with wages and demographics. Prices stabilize, inequality stops accelerating, trust begins to rebuild. In a partial reform path, policies exist, but are weak, fragmented, and politically fragile. Vacancy declines at the margins, prices pause, then resume climbing. The crisis softens but never disappears. And in the status quo path, nothing truly changes. Homes remain assets first. Young people adapt downward. Families delay. Social pressure builds beneath a calm surface until it breaks somewhere else.
The future of housing is not a technical puzzle, it is a moral and political choice. The question is not what is possible, it is what societies are willing to prioritize, shelter or storage. Housing is never just about walls and roofs, it is a mirror. It reflects what a society chooses to protect and who it is willing to leave exposed. When homes are treated primarily as financial instruments, stability becomes conditional, belonging becomes negotiable. The market does not ask who needs shelter, it asks what produces the highest return. And slowly, almost invisibly, the foundation of social trust begins to crack. This story is not about villains, it is about systems, about incentives that reward holding more than helping, about choices made quietly, year after year. In the next 7 days, pause and look around your own city. Count the dark windows, ask who they serve, ask what kind of economy you are living inside of, and decide deliberately whether markets should serve people or whether people are expected to serve the market.